MF Doom is one of the greatest rappers to ever live. He's had a villainous career that will be studied for centuries to come. So I figured what better time to now than to rank his entire discography. Let me know down in the comments, how do you rank his albums? I'm not going to talk about any of his instrumental projects or the joints he produced for other people, but maybe that'll be a video for another day. If you love hip hop as much as I do and want to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that is always appreciated. I try to put out videos every 2 weeks or so on here, and I got a bunch of dope stuff planned for you guys coming up, and I don't want to waste any more time, so let's get right into the video. Number 15 is Key to the Cuffs by MF Doom with Gennaro Jarrell as JJ Doom. Don't get me wrong, there are no bad MF Doom projects, but some of them are less than perfect. This album is usually one that shows up on the bottom of these lists, and I wish that I can say it was some sort of misunderstood masterpiece, and maybe it is, but if that's the case, then I'm misunderstanding it as well. This album doesn't feel nearly as cohesive as Doom's other records. Jarrell's production is very loud and experimental, but it feels disjointed when paired with Doom's delivery. MF Doom still is an incredibly talented MC, so he's able to still find some fun in these tracks. Wash Your Hands is almost like a club banger parody about washing your hands when you go to the club, and Governor was a great lead single, and even samples The Regular Show, which is fire. There is still lively samples and an overall cartoonish feeling that you typically love in an MF Doom project, but it's just hard to see the full vision of what they were going for with this one. In a lesser artist's discography, maybe this would get more praise, but since Doom has so much music that's better than this, it'll never really break through from the "oh yeah, that album exists" category into the underrated gem tier. Honestly, the album does kind of feel like its cover, just a mishmash of random items and ideas connected loosely around each other, but without a main through line bringing it all together. For number 14, we're keeping it with JJ Doom for the EP Bookhead. This is one of the lesser known MF Doom projects. It's only 4 original tracks and 4 remixes, so it's easy to get lost in the shuffle of his great discography. But this is a pretty sizable step up from Key to the Cuffs for me. These 4 original tracks feel much more focused and intentional than the full-length album that they released as a duo. JJ's production is still unique and unbound, but this time it doesn't overshadow what Doom does. It feels under control, as opposed to Key to the Cuffs, which felt out of control at times. Even when there's beat switches and cool flares in the production, you can feel the intention behind it. The title track is probably my favorite on here, but on track 2, Pause Tape, Doom and JJ both give incredible and pretty funny verses that help me realize why this duo came together in the first place. Track 3 is even a JJ solo joint, and his rapping performance really impressed me, and kind of makes me wish that he rapped more on their full-length project. And then the last original track on here, Viberian Sun, has Doom rapping alongside of Del the Funky Homosapien, which is a joy for any hip-hop fan to hear. Really, if this was longer, it might be higher on the list, but at only 4 tracks, I think this is a good spot. Number 13, we have Super What. This was the second Doom collaboration with Czarface, and might just be the last official MF Doom project that we ever got. It's a little sentimental for that reason, but still overall a fun record. Doom and Czarface are really a great pair. Their styles blend perfectly, and they have that charismatic comic book chemistry that you would expect from them to have together. My only real issue with the 2 Doom and Czarface records is that they feel much more like Czarface records than Doom records. That's not inherently a bad thing, but on an MF Doom album ranking list, I'd much rather have a project that more represents Doom in his entire essence towards the top. Doom doesn't even have too many verses on this project, all things considered, but when he does pop in for a verse, it's like a dope guest starring role who steals the show every time. The Czarface MCs are awesome, but Doom is an all-time legend for a reason, and his delivery is still one of a kind, and adds some much-needed spice into the Czarface formula. I do think that the production here is some of the best that Doom worked with on the latter half of his career. The Czar keys filled every beat with so much character and personality that it fits with Doom so well. And even though this is a minor project for him, I think the quality is definitely there to hold up with some of the best. Number 12, we have Born Like This. I'm sure a lot of people were surprised that I have this so low, and really I think it just proves how amazing MF Doom's catalog is. Because this is still a great project. Gazillion Ear starts off the album with one of the best Doom tracks ever, with some of the sharpest writing, and a number of beat switches that give a full range of his creativity and style. This album may even have Doom's most technical rapping on it, and sometimes that makes for an amazing and immersive experience, but at other times it's a little distracting for me. Songs like More Rhymin' and That's That feel closer to a late period Eminem track, where he's sort of just rhyming just to rhyme, and it does take me out of it a little bit. The production on this album is really just cool as hell. Each track sounds like it fits the villainous vibe that he was going for with this record, and with production from Madlib, Mr. Chop, Jake One, J Dilla, and Doom himself, this has some of the coolest sounding beats ever made. This technically was the last Doom solo record that we ever got, so it's cool hearing some of the last bits of his untethered mind like this. But with that, it does feel like his least focused solo project, especially compared to his work in the early and mid 2000s. The feature list on here is incredible too, with Raekwon, Ghostface Killah, Pasta Noose, Slug, and more. Really, this is a great album that's filled with dope verses, but there's just a little something holding it back from classic status for me. At number 11, we have Venomous Villain. The second Victor Vaughn record is interesting because it's one of the only Doom projects that's still not on streaming, so it often gets overlooked. And while it's not as great as the first project from Victor, Doom still does his thing on here. The production on this is super tight, with these hard-hitting drums and futuristic samples. The first real track, Back End, proves that Doom is still in his prime here, ripping off a phenomenal track, rapping fast and telling a vivid story, and the beat is like this alien spasm through your ears. And then it has this amazing guitar or bass come in halfway through, lacing this thing with a foundation of funk. It's a great way to start off a record. Each beat has a mind of its own on here, with samples that pop in because they feel like they have something to say, and beat switches that feel organic to the villainous chaos on display. I really can't express enough how awesome the production is on here. This is the project from Doom that I listen to least because it's not on streaming, but every time I toss it on, I'm blown away by how it sounds. MF Doom was such a dynamic rapper, and this was his opportunity to spit on beats that were just as dynamic. It really is phenomenal at times. There's a ton of great features on here too, including an awesome one from Cookies. There's really nothing but cool tracks on here, and I think this is probably his most underrated album. But the reason why it's so low, it just doesn't have anything as iconic as the albums above it. I don't think there's really one classic verse or song on here, and that's maybe just a symptom of it not being available to people, but the Victor Vaughn experiment was done so expertly the first time around that there's really just not that much of a reason for this to exist, even though it's still very good. Number 10, Czarface meets Metalface. This is very similar to the other Czarface collaboration that I talked about earlier in this video, but it feels just a little more like an official MF Doom project. He straight up just raps more on this album, and had his presence felt on more of the tracks. And he's a couple years younger, so his voice and delivery are a lot more lively, and he seems excited to be doing this. Like I said before, Doom and Czarface are a perfect match. 7L's production is fire, and Esoteric and Deck bring just as much personality as Doom does, so they all work together well. This album has a sense of humor that you would come to expect from a collaboration like this, and the skits fit right in with the comic team-up concept. Songs like Metal with Metal, MSR, Nautical Depth, and Bombs Thrown are easily some top-tier songs from the late era of Doom's career. And with that being said, it is the late era of Doom's career, and as much as I love this album, prime MF Doom is one of hip-hop's greatest artists ever, so it's a high bar to live up to. Also, my favorite song on the project, Stun Gun, is really just an esoteric solo joint, and Doom just kind of speaks on the outro, so that's a little disappointing for me. Neither of his collaborations with Czarface really feel like MF Doom records completely, so they can't match up with his solo and even earlier group work. At number 9, we have Black Bastards, the second album from KMD. This is a little bit of a controversial album in his career. After the positivity of the first KMD record, their label was shocked by the darker subject matter and cover of the album, so they shelved it back in the day. But luckily, we ended up getting this one because it's one of the most underrated projects in his catalog. This thing is much more experimental and dark than the first KMD project, really expanding their artistry and helping Zev Love X find his voice as the future MF Doom. It has the same Saturday morning cartoon-based sampledelia, but this one feels like it crossed into Adult Swim territory. The only reason why I have it ranking below Mr. Hood is just that Mr. Hood has a few higher highs than this, but as a total package, this one is right there with it. Doom's rapping performance is stellar, and the perfect bridge between the first Zev Love X that we got and the villain that we all would get to know later on. His presence may be at its most chaotic here, and it really gives this record an engaging energy. You can really hear the hunger in his voice, as he has a lot to say on this record. MF Doom has always had political views in his raps, while never being overly politicized, but this album veers directly into consciousness at times. The production on Black Bastards is really what steals the show for me. Each track toes the line between fun, artistic, and cool. It has a distinctly 90s feel to it, without ever sounding too much like any other 90s album. It's way ahead of its time. Many of my favorite beats from the Special Herb series come from this project, and overall the sound of this thing is amazing, and one that should be praised right up there with the best of his work. At number 8, Nehruvian Doom. This is one of the more slept on Doom projects in my eyes. A lot of people probably have this way down in the rankings, and maybe it just holds a special place in my heart because of the time it came out, but I love this thing. This was the first Doom project to come out while I was already a fan of his, and even though it has the least amount of Doom rapping than any of these other projects, it feels like the true late period Doom record that I wanted for the whole last decade of his career. He teams up with the young MC Bishop Nehru, who a lot of people hated on at the time, but I really like his style and how it differs from Doom's. He has a very simplistic flow and delivery and clarity with his rhyme patterns that goes so well next to Doom's gruff and intricate mastery. They really do feel like a villainous Batman and Robin on here. Doom's production is amazing throughout this entire project, really making it so that you don't miss Doom's presence on the songs that he doesn't rap on. There are so many great little quotables from each of these two MCs on here, and each song is like this nice little perfectly concocted stew of beats and rhymes. This album is just the right amount of darkness, cartoonishness, depth, and fun. I could see why diehard Doom fans would be disappointed by the lack of bars from the villain on here, but like I said, he took Nehru under his wing and lets him shine while adding his villainous expertise every chance he gets. Means the most, Coming for You, Darkness, and Great Things are my personal favorites on the album, but I like this whole thing. It also benefits from having a shorter runtime and not having many skits to drag it down. It really is just stellar hip-hop from start to finish, and no villainous dilly-dallying. At number 7 we have Mr. Hood. The first KMD record is really the first taste of MF Doom that we ever got, back when he was going under the name Zev Love X. This album is very much in the line of the Native Tongues Collective, and that is one of my favorite movements in hip-hop, so there's no surprise why I love this album so much. It's a fun, lighthearted, great time with a touch of social consciousness, and that is the essence of hip-hop, with great rhymes and sample-heavy production. The samples are a mishmash of public access TV like Sesame Street and skits that make this feel like a mockumentary, following the title character of Mr. Hood. It fits right along with the releases of the time from the main Native Tongue members, but KMD has their own off-kilter and unique style. There's a ton of early classic Doom songs on here, like Who Me, Hum Rush, and Peach Fuzz, which was the hit off the album and stands up there with some of the most memorable music from the time. As a rapper, Doom isn't the titan that he would become later on in his career, but there's a free-flowing acrobatic style to his rhyming on this record that's really fun to listen to while also sowing the seeds of greatness that we would see later on. This is such a different sounding record than anything Doom would give us later on, so it's very fun to hear. This is essential MF Doom as his origin story. Even though this is only at number 7, it's absolutely a must listen for any MF Doom fan. Number 6 we have Take Me to Your Leader. This is Doom's album under the alias King Geedorah, the dragon-like three-headed monster who hails from Monster Island. This has some of my favorite production from any Doom project, and his raps on here are great as well. But this is interestingly enough a record that he shares the spotlight with many of his fellow Monster Island czars. Really, Doom only raps on 5 of the 13 songs on here, but similarly to Nehruvian Doom, his presence is felt expertly on the entire thing. Phaser starts off the album with essentially the King Geedorah theme song. It's one of MF Doom's greatest joints ever, and really is a great opening title sequence for the project. His rhymes on this album are so tightly constructed, he really was in peak MC form while he was making this thing, and while also being in his prime as a producer. The whole tape has this otherworldly feel to it, like we're getting invaded by these monstrous MCs who are larger than life on the mic. Really, every feature on here is pretty incredible as well. They each feel like a different beast with their own vocal tendencies and rhyme schemes. It works really great as a group project with Doom as its leader. Even the elusive Mr. Fantastic makes an appearance on here, but as good as these guest MCs are, Geedorah is the main event, and every time he raps on a song, it's a show stealer. If there was more Doom rapping on this record, then it probably could be even higher, but as it stands, this is pretty close to a perfect project. There's not that much on here that I would change at all. Overall, just an amazing record. At number 5, we have The Mouse and the Mask by Danger Doom. MF Doom's collaboration with Danger Mouse for Adult Swim is such a fun piece of work within his discography. With the help of the Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Doom and Mouse give nothing but cartoon, villainous good vibes on this record. Danger Mouse's production feels like a cartoon come to life without ever feeling too out there or experimental, and Doom's rhymes here are perfectly plotted, even if they aren't his most intricate. This has some of my favorite MF Doom lines ever. Pretty much every song is just witty bar after witty bar. Doom can sometimes get into the weeds with his eccentric flows, but this one is just straight and to the point, and I appreciate that. Every beat sounds like the theme song to an After Hours cartoon, while still having enough variety to keep Doom on his toes. From the Latin-inspired crosshairs to the Doomsday-esque synths on Benzi Box, this whole thing sounds incredible. I love pretty much every song on here, from Soda King to Vats of Urine. I even had the song Old School Rules playing on my old volleyball warm-up CD, bumping throughout the entire gym full of people back in high school. And this has some of the highest profile features of any Doom projects too. He has always been known to pick great features on all of his records, but oftentimes they can be lesser known artists that he brings up to the occasion. This time around he grabbed some of the most well-respected artists and brought them into his cartoon world together. Talib Kweli, CeeLo Green, and Ghostface Killah all fit perfectly and meet Doom where he lives on every record, to make their songs the best they could be. In one of the most exciting discographies of all time, this record still somehow finds a way to be one of his most entertaining records, and I'll always love it for that. At number 4, we have Vaudeville Villain. MF Doom's first record under the alias Victor Vaughn is one of his best. It's so fascinating hearing him take on the persona of Victor Vaughn because of how different he is from MF Doom. Vaughn is younger, more cocky, and maybe even more villainous at times than Doom. And it's so cool hearing an MC of his caliber show the intricacies of his persona while playing different characters like this. This is when Doom was in his prime as a producer too. The beats on here are cinematic in their depths and layering, and feel like they came directly from the world that Victor is rapping from. Nothing seems artificial about this project at all. It all works so well, and this is some of the sharpest writing of his career too. His descriptive storytelling and world building on this album is something to be studied. This album came out in 2003, so it was right at the start of his incredible 2-year run. And there's no higher bar that you can set for yourself than this. Since this project doesn't have the name MF Doom on it, I feel like it often gets slept on, but as you can see by its placement on this list, this is one of his best and should be regarded at the top. Songs like Lick Upon, Can I Watch, and Saliva are some of the best that he's ever recorded, and really the whole thing is right up there with the top 3 on this list. It's just a matter of personal preference, of style and tone. Of the top 5, this is probably the one that I've listened to least, but every time I listen to it, I start to question myself and think that maybe this should be even higher. I really don't think that this album has any flaws, and for this to be number 4 on my ranking just goes to show again how amazing MF Doom was, especially when considering that 2 of the top 3 came out within 2 years of this project. At number 3, we have Operation Doomsday. I really debated between this being at number 2 or number 3. It really is one of my personal favorite records ever. The first official MF Doom solo album is really what started it all for the legend that we all know and love today. Out of the ashes of KMD, MF Doom arose with a brand new persona and a combination of beats and rhymes that would change hip-hop forever. I think compared to the other ones in the top 5, this is a little bit of a mixed bag. There are a few tracks on here that I don't think are flawless, as he was still finding his style and sound, but the songs that do work are possibly some of the greatest songs ever recorded. Doomsday is my personal favorite Doom song ever, with the beautiful Sade sample, the wonderfully hip-hop scratches, and Doom's perfect performance on the mic. The song is filled with quotable after quotable, with every word delivered with the expertise of an MC at the top of the craft. This album is MF Doom at his purest form. He's on the mic and he's on the boards. No experiments, no other personas, just the one and only MF Doom. The beats on here are some of the smoothest velvety sounds ever laid. and he raps over them like he was born to do so. Rhymes Like Dimes is another one of my personal favorites, and stacks on top of Doomsday to be one of the best opening 1-2 punches on any album ever. The whole project is great. I am so in love with the sonic direction that he chose to go with this album, but as crazy as that is, he was able to reach even higher peaks twice in 2004, which is insane. Number 2 is Food. By his second solo record, MF Doom had become one of the most creative minds in hip-hop. This record has everything I love about Operation Doomsday, but levels it up even more. The beats are crazier, the rhymes are more intricate and memorable, and overall this is one of the best albums in rap history. I'm a sucker for a concept record, and this album has the concept of food. Every song revolves around food or drinks, and it makes the project so fun to listen to. The tracks have made their way into my mind and play over and over every time I eat knishes, queso, cakes, or even have one beer. The lines from each of these songs ring continuously in my head. Beef Rap starts off the album with one of the best MF Doom tracks ever, with him waging war on all of the whack rappers out there. And each track that follows continues this run of greatness. Even the skits are entertaining, because they fall on top of all-time MF Doom beats that are better than the beats that most other rappers rap on. Every song on this record is just like eating another course of a great meal, energizing each listen and filling me up just enough while I keep wanting more. Every song on here is amazing, from Hoe Cakes to Deep Fried Friends to Con Carne to One Beer and Vomit Spit. He was at the top of his game making every single track here. But the real standout on the album is Rap Snitch Knishes, another one of my all-time favorite songs. Mr. Fantastic steals the show on that one as one of the most elusive MCs of all time, and his chemistry with Doom is unmatched. For years I had Operation Doomsday ahead of this one, but as I get older, this album is just the gift that keeps on giving. Every song is so rich with rhymes that get better and better with each listen. At number 1, we have Madvillainy. MF Doom linked up with Madlib to form one of the greatest hip-hop duos of all time, Madvillain. They are two of the greatest minds that hip-hop has ever seen, and when they came together, it was nothing less than magic. This is straight up one of the best collections of beats and rhymes that hip-hop has ever seen. The sound and sequencing of this record sounds like it's transmitting straight from a different planet, composed of villainous masterminds who only make perfection. MF Doom's rhymes are delightfully deliberate. At times he sounds like an abstract poet or philosopher, weaving through the best rapping of his career. The first words that he raps on this album are "Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster," which straight up sounds like it's from an Edgar Allan Poe story or something. He's writing like a literary titan because he is one. And Madlib's production suits him so well, always off-kilter and different, while still never losing the pocket. Their chemistry is so perfect that it's almost like they were concocted in a lab by a couple of mad scientists for this very purpose. As unique and cohesive as this whole album is, there's still a lot of variety in the songs, themes, and tone. It takes you on a journey from start to finish, blending in samples, skits, and features from the two artists' alter egos, Quasimodo and Victor Vaughn, on the songs America's Most Blunted, Shades of Tomorrow, and Fancy Clown. Just like with the last handful of albums I talked about, so many of these joints are all-time classic songs. Accordion, Fancy Clown, Curls, and All Caps, which is probably the most iconic MF Doom song ever. Really, this entire thing is the most iconic thing that Doom has ever done. When people think of MF Doom, they probably think of Madvillain, because it's the best MF Doom album ever, and one of the greatest things that hip-hop has ever produced. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know down in the comments, how do you rank MF Doom's albums? Thank you to my patrons. This video topic was voted on by my patrons. If you want to be able to vote on whose discography I rank next, head over to patreon.com/DefGoldblum. I'm starting to get back into the swing of things with a more consistent video schedule for you guys, and the dope content is only just starting to roll out. If you enjoyed the video and want to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that is always appreciated. And you know the deal, I got a lot more headed your way, so stay tuned, stay safe, and stay def. Thanks for watching.